On September 12th, Unity published a blog post titled Unity Plan Pricing and Packaging Updates, and let's just say it's not gone down well with the game dev community. The post outlines a new pricing change known as the Unity Runtime Fee, which will mean that studios and indie developers alike will need to pay each time a copy of their game is installed on a player's device. Now, if that sounds absurd, that's because the general consensus is that it is. The post tries to justify this fee by stating that when a game is installed on a player's device, the Unity runtime is also installed, and that they chose this install-based fee to allow creators to keep ongoing revenue from player engagement, stating that this is unlike in a revenue share model. As a side note, if you're unfamiliar with Unreal Engine's pricing model, it's basically a flat 5% fee of revenue earned after your first $1 million. This fee is per title, so if you make $999,000 from one game and $999,000 from another, you don't pay them a penny. That said, let's take a look at the pricing breakdown for Unity's new runtime fee. For Unity Personal and Plus members, more on that in a moment, the runtime fee doesn't come into play until you've earned $200,000 or more in the past 12 months and have at least 200,000 lifetime game installs. For Unity Pro and Enterprise customers, that threshold increases to $1 million or more in the past 12 months and have at least 1 million lifetime installs. Once the threshold has been met, Personal and Plus members will face a flat 20 cents fee per new install, while Pro and Enterprise members will face a tiered pricing structure based on the amount of installs per month that starts at 15 cents per install and then can decrease to 1 to 2 cents per install. Bear in mind though that this tier pricing resets every month, so the first 100,000 installs per month will always be charged at the higher rate, and then so on. Let's circle back to the Unity Plus subscription for a moment. This is the cheapest license you can purchase after the free personal license, and it includes things such as cloud diagnostics, collaboration tools, and probably the most important feature is the ability to customize or completely remove the Made with Unity splash screen. Well, at least it did, because Unity just completely removed it. So if you want to remove the splash screen from your games now, you best be willing to fork out roughly $2,000 per seat, which is almost a 10 times price hike. Now yes, you do get more features with Unity Pro than you did with Plus, however I suspect the vast majority of people who were on the Plus tier were only there for the splash screen customization. That's a hefty price increase for just that one feature. Now, there's understandably been a lot of discussion, frustration, upset, and anger over this new runtime fee. Twitter's been on fire as indie developers have stated that this will have a major impact on their ability to run a sustainable business. Big game studios like Innersloth, the creators of Among Us, have came out and said that this change, if it isn't reversed, they'll actively port their game to another engine. And people on the Unity forums are claiming that mobile games in particular, where average revenue per user is generally extremely low, where it's countered by huge download numbers, this could actually put those studios at a net loss, which means that each install would cost them more than they typically make in revenue per player. One Unity employee who remained anonymous actually posted on the Unity forums to state that they were completely appalled at some of the choices for this new pricing model, and that many of the employees are up in arms about it. In their post, they aim to address some of the questions that people have had, such as whether installs for charity events will be charged, or if things such as Game Pass installs would be counted. Many of these issues have now seemingly been addressed in one way or another, either via updates from the original post, or Unity employees on Twitter, for example. But one thing stood out about this person's post is that they state that Unity hasn't actually figured out how to count the installs yet. This to me rings alarm bells, because Unity are planning to charge developers per install without having any concrete way to validate the number of installs they're going to charge us for. This just seems completely absurd to me. If we look back at the blog post, it does state that customers may qualify for credits towards the Unity runtime fee based on the adoption of Unity services beyond the editor. These services include Unity gaming services and Unity level play. This to me seems like a clear move to force developers to use Unity's own services for things such as multiplayer, authentication, ad mediation, and live ops, for example. Now, personally speaking, I've been a fan and an advocate of Unity for many years, and I've invested a great deal of time and effort into learning and developing with the engine, as well as spent far more than I care to admit on Unity assets. In fact, I recently announced on Twitter and in my newsletter that I was incredibly excited to finally be attending the Unity annual Unite conference this year in Amsterdam, which I am still planning on going to, but honestly this whole thing has left a very sour taste in my mouth. Game devs, particularly indies, already operate on such a fine profit margin in order to keep their businesses alive and viable that taking a flat fee per install just seems like an extremely bullish and greed-fueled tactic by Unity execs to nickel and dime their customers, which completely goes against the grain of other engines such as Unreal or Godot, who actively support game developers and want them to succeed. Now, since the backlash, there have been a number of clarifications and updates on various parts of this pricing model, such as confirmation that demos, charity bundles, Game Pass installs, and reinstalls will not be included in the fee. They've also stated that fraudulent installs, where a bad actor might repeatedly install the game in order to force a developer to incur a fee, will not be charged. But how they intend to detect this is still open for discussion. They've also said that a calculator is currently in the works that will hopefully allow developers to get an accurate estimate of how this change will impact them financially. They've also estimated that only 10% of customers will actually be impacted by this change. That is, any customers who are currently earning more than $200,000 in revenue with games that have more than 200,000 lifetime installs. Now, I want to take a minute to be clear here. While I am absolutely against this change, I don't necessarily think it warrants a mass exodus from the Unity engine. And quite honestly, for some people who've been spending years developing games with the engine, the option to just switch is not feasible. I still think Unity is a fantastic engine for game development, and the sheer amount of resources available both in terms of learning material and actual assets continue to make Unity a compelling option for game development. I also want to ask that you please remain polite and respectful when speaking to Unity employees about this issue. Ultimately, they're not the ones who made these decisions, and as we've heard already, they're just as frustrated, disappointed, and upset with these changes as the rest of us. So please treat them with kindness, as I know they're going to be dealing with a lot of backlash right now. It's changes like these that make open source game engines such as Godot, GDevelop, or Flax an even more viable and attractive offering for many. While resources for these engines may not be as abundant as they are for larger engines such as Unity or Unreal, open source engines empower developers by safeguarding them from these sorts of changes. With an engine like Godot, it's yours and yours to keep forever in whatever state you want to keep it. Or if you've got specific requirements, you're free to fork the engine and customize it to suit your needs. For many game developers, I do think that this change by Unity will be the final nail in the coffin that finally drives them to abandon ship and move to another engine like Godot or Unreal. That said, I will still be attending Unite 23 this November in Amsterdam. I'm curious to see what the mood music will be like there, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty of discussions to be had about it, but hopefully it will still be an opportunity to continue to see some good from an engine that I've admired for such a long time. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. Have you been impacted by this change? Are you considering moving to another engine since the announcement? Perhaps you're in the process of porting a game from Unity as we speak. Let me know down in the comments below. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you in the next one.